Hey guys, I'm Zach for Warlock Garden Games, and today we're talking about how do enemies know how to get to the player in my game. Enemies don't magically know where you are. They need a way to detect the player, whether through a vision cone or just tracking the player's position directly. In Godot, we can use a nav mesh to help our enemies navigate across the walkable ground. A nav mesh, or navigation mesh, is a pathfinding method where a pre-computed mesh defines a walkable area, allowing navigation agents to efficiently find and traverse paths across it. This allows enemies to effectively traverse the whole map to get to the player. This method does have an issue though. Pathfinding is expensive, and updating the path too often can result in lag, especially when you have multiple enemies pathfinding. To fix this, we can delay the time between pathfinding operations. You can pathfind once every 3 to 5 seconds instead of each frame to solve this issue. This means the enemies can work their way towards the player and update where that is periodically. This, however, creates another problem. When the enemies get too close to the player, the delay becomes noticeable as the enemies will continue to where the player was, meaning they're always behind. We can fix this by creating a different way to follow the player when enemies are close. Instead of using the nav mesh when close, we can switch the enemies to instead follow the player directly. Following the player directly is much less costly on performance and can be performed every frame, making the updates and tracking much smoother as it can happen more often. This creates another major issue though. If the enemies follow the player directly, this means they can be kited off the map. To fix this, we add a raycast node to the enemy that checks to see if the ground is in front of them. But what is a raycast and how do we use it? Imagine a laser beam shooting out from the enemy in a straight line. That's basically what a raycast does. It's an invisible line that checks to see if something's in the way. In our case, we can use it to see if the ground is in front of the enemy, and if not, then we can just assume that it's a pit or a cliff and stop the enemy from walking into the abyss. This allows enemies to feel lively and like they are actually chasing the player. It can also enhance this effect with level design and enemy design. This level was intentionally designed so that almost every area is reachable by walking, meaning enemies can always get to the player no matter where they go. However, using movement abilities like dashes or jumps lets the player take shortcuts and reach areas faster. Sometimes the player can go somewhere that the ground units can't reach, so I added enemies like eyebats that can fly and ignore the terrain, keeping the pressure on the player no matter where they run. Enemy AI isn't just about making enemies move, it's about making them feel intelligent and reactive to the player's actions. By combining nav meshes, direct tracking, raycast, and thoughtful level design, we can create enemies that feel like real threats without sacrificing performance. Comment down below with any questions you have about the game, or even your own ideas of what I should add or change, and maybe you'll end up seeing it implemented in game. I look forward to seeing your guys' ideas and how this game can evolve over time. Let's make a great game together.